All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep, deep into the world of AI.
Deep, deep, deep.
But not just the same old headlines we see every day. We are talking about how this stuff is actually impacting data, business,
Yeah.
even the way companies try to, market their products to us.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting time. It really feels like we're at a turning point. And the sources that we're going to be looking at today show just how widespread this impact already is.
Absolutely, and we've got a good spread here, too. We've got 4 sources. First up, we've got a news update about Snowflake's new platform. This is the one that has everyone talking about data agents,
Right.
which we'll get into exactly what that means, but very buzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got a report on Nvidia's new chips. These things are insanely fast, but apparently they're also overheating a little bit.
Yeah.
So, a little hiccup there. And then things get really, really interesting. We've got a scientific journal article about an AI that can analyze and even create new DNA sequences,
Wow.
which just blows my mind. And then to bring it back down to earth a little bit, we're going to finish up with Coca-Cola's attempt at using AI to generate Christmas ads.
Interesting. So like a real world application.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing how this stuff is actually playing out for a major brand. So, that's a lot to cover, but I think one of the most interesting things here is the questions these sources raise.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, are we really at the point where AI can decode our DNA? Can
Yeah.
it make art that people actually, connect with?
Those are the big questions, right?
Huge.
Is it all hype, or are we really seeing a fundamental shift in what AI is capable of doing?
Right. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's start with Snowflake. What is the deal with this Snowflake Intelligence and these so-called data agents?
Well, it's a bold claim, I'll give them that. But I think the core idea here is to try to tackle this problem that so many businesses face, which is just this overwhelming amount of data, right? You've got mountains of data coming in from all these different places: sales, customer interactions, internal documents, even just the casual conversations that employees are having on platforms like Slack.
Right, and trying to make sense of all that is usually where the data scientists come in. But Snowflake is saying, with their platform, you don't need a data scientist. That even someone, without a technical background can get insights from all of this data.
Yeah, they're really trying to democratize this process, make it accessible.
So paint me a picture here. Let's say I'm running a small business. What could I actually do with Snowflake Intelligence?
Well, imagine being able to just ask a question in plain English, like, what's our biggest obstacle to closing sales this month?
Oh, wow.
Or which marketing campaign is resonating most with Gen Z customers? And then instead of having to dig through spreadsheets and run complex queries, you just get a clear, actionable answer.
Directly from your data. Okay, so for decision making, that could be huge, especially for those smaller companies.
Right, absolutely. It levels the playing field.
The ones that don't have these giant data science teams.
Exactly. And the interesting thing to me about how they're doing this is that the core technology here is something called Snowflake Cortex AI.
Okay.
And what's really impressive about it is that it can handle both structured data, the traditional stuff like spreadsheets and databases, but it can also handle unstructured data, like those Slack conversations we talked about, or emails or social media posts.
Oh, interesting. So it's pulling insights from places that might have been overlooked before.
Right, exactly. And that's where I think the real potential lies. You could suddenly see connections between things like customer feedback and actual sales numbers, or, between employee morale and productivity, things that you might not have been able to connect before.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like suddenly you've got this whole new level of understanding of your business.
Yeah. And because Snowflake is already such a major player in data warehousing, they already have the infrastructure in place to make this work at scale. So, it's not just some theoretical idea, it's something that businesses can actually implement.
Right, yeah, they're not starting from scratch here. But I guess the real test is going to be whether it lives up to the hype once companies actually start using it in the real world.
Exactly. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Okay, so potential game changer on the data front, but then we've got this report about Nvidia's chips overheating. And Nvidia is... they're like the biggest name in AI hardware right now, right?
They are, yeah. They're the leaders in this space.
So what's going on?
Well, these new chips that they've developed, called Blackwell chips, are supposed to be their crown jewel. They're claiming that these chips are 30 times faster than the previous generation.
Wow.
But there are some whispers starting to circulate that they're running so hot that it's actually causing problems.
So what's the problem? Can't they just, crank up the AC in the server rooms?
It's a little more complicated than that. I mean, of course, companies have ways to keep servers cool, but the issue here is that the sheer power of these chips, the amount of processing they're doing, is generating a tremendous amount of heat. It's pushing the limits of current cooling technology.
So this isn't just like, oh, it's running a little warm. This is like, we need to fundamentally rethink how we're cooling these things.
Yeah, and what makes this a really big deal is that the entire AI industry is kind of relying on Nvidia to deliver on these chips.
Right, because companies like Meta and Google, who are all in on AI, they're using these chips, right?
Exactly. And if Nvidia can't solve this overheating problem, it could have a ripple effect throughout the entire industry. Projects could be delayed, companies might have to invest in much more expensive cooling solutions. It could even push them to start looking for alternative chip manufacturers.
Wow. Okay, so this is a bigger deal than just Nvidia then. This could be a sign that the hardware is actually struggling to keep pace with how quickly AI software is developing.
Yeah, it's a real bottleneck.
So what do you think? Is this a temporary setback, or are we hitting some kind of fundamental limit with current technology?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It could be that NVIDIA just needs a little more time to refine their design. But it also raises the question of whether we're reaching the limits of what's possible with traditional silicon-based chips. I mean, some experts believe that we're going to need entirely new approaches to hardware if we want to keep pushing AI forward at this pace.
Wow. All right. So from overheating servers to, well, this next one is a bit of a jump, an AI that analyzes DNA. Break that down for me.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. So we're talking about a large language model similar to the technology behind ChatGPT, but instead of being trained on text and code, this one, which they've called EVO, was trained on microbial genomes.
Wait, so it's like an AI that speaks the language of life itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It's kind of creepy, too.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's definitely pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible with AI.
So what can this thing actually do?
Well, it can analyze DNA sequences, it can predict what certain mutations might do, and it can even generate entirely new DNA sequences that have never existed in nature.
Okay, that's where the creepy factor really kicks in. Are we talking about like designer organisms? Is this AI going to start creating new life forms?
Not quite yet. The researchers who developed EVO say that the DNA sequences it generates don't always make sense from a biological perspective. It's kind of like an AI-generated image that looks almost real, but then it has some weird details that are just off.
Ah, so like that uncanny valley effect, but for DNA. Okay, so maybe no Frankenstein monsters just yet, but the potential here is still huge, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine using this technology to understand genetic diseases better, or to personalize medicine, or even to design new materials based on biological principles.
Wow.
But of course, it also raises a whole host of ethical questions.
Right, like if AI can generate DNA, who gets to control that power? And how do we prevent it from being misused?
Exactly. These are big questions that society needs to start grappling with, and quickly. This technology is advancing rapidly, and we need to be prepared for the implications.
Okay, so we've got AI helping us to understand data, potentially hitting a hardware roadblock, and now venturing into the very building blocks of life. And we haven't even gotten to Coca-Cola's Christmas ads yet.
Oh, that's right. And that one brings up a whole different set of questions about AI and creativity.
Yeah, we're going to need a whole other deep dive for that one.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about these Coca-Cola Christmas ads, the AI-generated ones. What was your first reaction when you saw these?
You know, to be honest, I kind of felt like, is this really what they were going for? Like, I get that they wanted to do something cutting edge, innovative, but I don't know, the whole thing felt a little bit more uncanny valley than like warm, fuzzy holiday vibes.
Yeah, I think you've hit on something that a lot of people have pointed out. These ads have definitely sparked a lot of debate. You've got some people who are praising Coke for being innovative and pushing the boundaries. And then you've got others who are really criticizing the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And even more so, the implications that this has for, human artists.
Right, like, are we going to see AI replacing artists now?
Yeah.
But okay, before we get into all of that, I do have to admit, the technology behind these ads is pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, they used multiple different AI models, right?
Yeah, they did.
One for generating the images, one for the video. They even had one to create, like, realistic human movement.
It's a real testament to what's possible with AI right now from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, but I think what's really interesting is the pushback that we're seeing from, actual artists and filmmakers. it's not just about jobs being lost, is it?
No, it's a much deeper question than that. It's about, like, is AI art really art?
Right.
Like, is something missing when it's not created by a human?
Yeah, like Coca-Cola was clearly aiming for this sense of, wonder and nostalgia. But the end result, at least for me, it just feels kind of unsettling. It's almost ironic. They tried to use the most advanced technology, but the result feels less authentic, less emotionally resonant than, their classic hand-drawn animation.
I think you've hit on a key distinction there. AI excels at patterns and processes. It can analyze vast amounts of data, like those microbial genomes we talked about, and then create outputs based on those patterns.
Right.
But human creativity often comes from breaking those patterns, from injecting personal expression and lived experience into the work. And that's something that, at least for now, AI can't really replicate.
So maybe AI is more of a tool for creative exploration then, but not necessarily a replacement for the human spark of imagination.
That's an interesting way to put it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the key message is this. Stay curious, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep exploring.
Yeah.
Because this is just the beginning. The AI revolution is just getting started, and the possibilities, both positive and negative, are immense.
I think that's a great way to put it. The future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. And the more informed and engaged we are about AI, the better chance we have of shaping a future where this technology benefits all of humanity.
A future where AI isn't something to be feared, but a tool to empower us, to solve problems, and to create a better world. A future where human ingenuity and AI's capabilities work together, not against each other.
I love that.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. We hope you learned something new, that you're feeling inspired, and maybe even a little bit empowered to be a part of shaping this incredible future. Until next time, keep diving deep.